Hi, Priti.
Hi, Smita. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You're
I mean,
looking
not very
lovely.
well. There's actually just so much of bad news around that it's just shocking. It's
I know. I
yeah,
know. Today has been quite disastrous. Um, for a moment, I thought, oh my God, what are we doing? And then we said, you know what? Actually, what is really needed is for us to bring in hope over here and to have conversations and to continue to have conversations and hold each other together through these difficult times.
right, absolutely. And I and it just tells you how mental health is just so important. And then these are all linked. It's all there to each other. Circumstances, what you're facing, all,
Yes, absolutely.
and you guys are, my congratulations. You're doing such a and it's so needed, and I think the women of the world need to come together and really stand up for this, and the men of course, but
Absolutely, all of us. This is the time, Preeti. We just all of us just really need to get together and hold hands and
correct.
move forward. You know. Thank you so much for coming in here today. I just very quickly want to take 2 minutes and introduce you for our viewers. There may not be many people over here watching this conversation here today, but this is going to go out. And you know about the Rakshin Project, right? So this conversation is going to reach out to the 40 lakh youth that we're reaching out through the Rakshin Project. So just give me a minute to introduce you over here. Um, Preeti, superstar mom, girl boss, film producer, financial feminist. These are some of the words that have been used to describe you. You're managing director of Anand Rathi Shares and Stockbrokers and the founder of Ishka Films. Married at 19 and chasing her dreams thereafter, you are a real life example of someone who has successfully turned passion into reality. You have won the award for special contribution to commodities business, Z Business Best Analyst Awards. You've also been awarded the Woman Leader of the Year by Women on Top and NDTV Profit in 2011. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ishka Films has produced Waiting with Nasiruddin Shah and Kalki Kochlin, two of my favorite actors. And true to your mission of producing meaningful cinema, you invested in Karwa with Irfan Khan. Yes,
This has
I
been
welcome. Yes, so I welcome you here today. Amongst many other things that we'll talk about, we'll focus our conversation on economics of empowerment, from financial freedom to meaningful cinema.
right. Brilliant.
So, Preeti, just before we jump right into economic empowerment and stuff, I would just like to our viewers to get to know you a little more. I mean, I know you, but I would like my viewers to know you a little more personally. So, if I was to ask you to define yourself, I mean, we've heard so much about you right now, but if you were to define yourself within just 3 words, which words will you choose?
Wow. The one word that I use to describe is that I'm never satisfied. So I think 3 words are not enough. But I think I guess I'm somebody who really wants to bring change. That's been something that I've always striven for.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is in terms of really what I do at work, or even Ishka Films was actually a direction. It was in that direction. So I think it's one is change maker. Really, I think we at some time, you at some point in life you start counting your blessings and you say there's so much around you which you can help bring a change. You can better lives. So whether it's cinema, whether it's through the work that you do,
Mm-hmm.
I think that really kind of I would use change maker, and I think I'm very impatient. Vouch for it, and I think even my friends that if it needs to be done, then I'm in a rush that this needs to be done. That Lakshmi will vouch for it. That it's I have done it yesterday. I think these two, and I don't. I mean, beyond that, I think the word I would use is I think I'm a people's person. I love.
Nice. Yes. I have experienced that people's person with you in my interaction with you. There's just so much warmth and an immediate connect. It's really heartwarming. Yes, that's there.
But it
Um,
takes two hands to, hands to clap. So I think it's kind of mutual. Uh,
thanks, Preeti. Okay, I just want to understand from you, like you have called yourself somebody who's also planned and extremely methodical. I mean, these are two words that you have used over and over again. I've been reading your interviews. I've also seen that you find time to for yourself during the day. You exercise. You are a trained Hindustani vocalist, classical singer, and you do riyaz every day, right? You're also like
Not the Riyaz, but I am trained, and I think a lot of credit of that goes to my mother. In our growing years, she insisted that my sister and I we learn Hindustani classical music, and I can that point in time it seemed like a chore, but when I'm revisiting it life, I realized that it's such a special gift that she's given us.
beautiful, lovely. Excellent. And you're also full-time working, right? You are, I mean, you're the managing director, and then you're also making films. I know that you're part of many organizations as well. I mean, YPO is one of the ones that I know about, and I'm sure there are others. How many hours are there in your day? Not 24, right?
The one word that I wanted to say at that point in time, it's greedy.
Nice.
So many.
No, I kind of understand that, Preeti, because I think I share that passion for life. It's just like I want to breathe in life with every breath, as much as I can. So I completely understand what you're saying with that. No misunderstanding there at all. But you, at another level, with so much there in your life, you've also talked about decluttering your life the KonMari way.
Right.
So, if I was to ask you in this new normal COVID phase that we are, and if I was to ask you to just take a pause for a minute and look around, what are the non essentials that you would take out from your life?
I think this phase has been, I think it has been, instead of COVID, we should call it, KonMari, because if nothing else, this has taught us that this can live without. And I think it's brought a huge amount of guilt and humility that you've been consuming so much more than required. I mean, I, I'm extremely fond of dressing well, clothes, etc. And the last 3 months have made me realize that there's just so much you need and nothing beyond, and that goes for a lot of things, not just whether it's our spends on restaurants, whether it's a lot of things that we do. Um, this has made us realize, and I think all of those can really do with at least as little as 1/10 of what we've been doing so far. And I think
Absolutely.
decluttering, it's also decluttering of a lot of things that we do out of social pressure, which is all this socializing, which anyways, over the last 2 years, I've kind of taken a call that these are the things I love to do. These are the people I love to meet, and I will do this. But the rest, I'm there's no social pressure, but there was
Yeah. Yeah.
so this
Yeah.
is a great phase, and I think it's been there for all of us.
Yes, it is really. A dear friend of mine, Sanjeev Sharma, he says it's not just about flattening the curve, it's about flattening our desires, flattening the consumption that we're looking at. It's about more sustainable living that we're talking about. You're so spot on over there. Just going back to your journey, I mean, you've said finance has been in your DNA, and you were married pretty young, right?
Right.
19, as I said. And you've also said that joining your father's and husband's business was an accident. But then once you joined, you really had to work really hard to carve your space over there, right?
Right.
If you would share with us some bit of your journey in the financial arena in those early years, I mean, what were the myths related to women and finance that you had to struggle with?
Well, I think the biggest myth going around is that women don't understand finance. And I think that is slowly breaking. But the time when I entered, when I was in that field, I mean, luckily, I think I'm very privileged and very lucky that my family didn't think so.
Hmm.
But I think people I was working with, even within the setup, kind of looked at me and said, okay, because she's privileged and she comes from this background, so she probably has a right to be here. But, guess what? She doesn't know much, right? So we've got to do the work that's to be done. And when I did, so I was doing something known as commodity futures, which is essentially with a lot of grains and spices and all of that. And it needed me to go to these physical markets to really go and understand, speak to the traders there.
Okay.
No, they would not. It was essentially mandis where men were, prominently run by men, and they would not even look at me when I spoke to them. That was a wall that I had that took time, but it was such a great learning experience because, it took some time, but essentially when you proved your mettle and you said, look, I understand this and I can help you, it took some time, but once you broke it, I think there was no looking back. But I think it's very easy to say this on hindsight, but it wasn't so easy then.
It was a struggle, right?
It was a struggle, internal buy-in as well as external buy-in of saying, yes, I'm a woman in finance and it's all right that, you do understand finance. So
did you have to work extra hard? Like, I mean, you had to, like, somebody around you would be doing something, but you would probably have to do double the effort to.
Well, so again, I think I would not be the right person to answer this only because I had a platform which was already there. But if I, try really climb up the steps the way a lot of people do, I know that. And then I also believe, Smita, that it's a two-way street.
Yes.
I've seen, because I've run huge, I've set up big teams which have looked at diversity, creating larger diversity, getting equal number of women. But it is a two-way street, and women, unfortunately, our ecosystem doesn't support us to say that, yes, if I have to do this, for example, if I have to visit out of town for my business, the family would essentially say, no, you shouldn't do something like this. You don't take up a job like this. You have kids and you have family and all of that. And I think that support women have to terribly have had to take a back step. And that is something which it's hugely encouraging to see that changing.
It is it?
Yeah, it is. It is changing, I think, because we're training our daughters, for example, we're talking equality.
Yeah.
That was not a dialogue which was implicitly or explicitly held in our households earlier on.
But financial literacy is still something to be desired. I mean, there's this age-old saying which is there, which says women save but men invest. That kind of it reflects that A, there is financial illiteracy, and B, there is a perception which is like really deep-rooted that women cannot manage their money. So tell us a little about Lakshmi in this context and tell me how it's bridging the gap.
Yeah, so I've been in financial services almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And when I found women within financial services, women around me, my friends, I spoke to them, most of them just had a block about managing their money. And the block was that I don't understand it. And I don't want to take that chance, because if I do try and attempt it, I don't want the men to laugh at me and say, oh, I told you so. And breaking that, I think, was one thing. Like I said, it's something, the change maker in me just felt that it's so important. Our parents teach us financial independence. They tell us that you must make a career, you must earn your own money, but they not tell us that managing the money that you are making, whether it is saving your household in, from your household expenses, or it is what you're earning, is even more important.
Yes.
Because if you don't know what your financial strength is, then you're terribly different. All your decisions are compromised. Your relationship decisions, your career decisions, they're all compromised. And I think that is why I say that, your managing your money is actually the biggest strength that you could build.
Absolutely.
I think it's even more needed as a woman to build that strength, which is how Lakshmi came about. I said, let's break that myth. Let's create a platform where women are able to talk to each other about money challenges without being judged. And let's also have a platform which will which will simplify the whole process of investing your money. where you can start small, where you can learn, where you can ask questions. Because again, the other thing I saw, that if it was it was a room which had men and women would shy away from asking questions.
Absolutely true. Very true. I mean, I'm somebody who is like really nervous around managing money, I mean, investments and stuff. And I've been checking out your Lakshmi website. Just tell a little more about what Lakshmi does, because I found it really fascinating.
So Lakshmi is essentially online and offline application, as well as, so it's an app as well as a community of women who talk about everything that is related with money. So whether it's your earnings, save, spending, and investing, because it is the entire chain, right? Because there are questions. A lot of women, for example, in this time tell us that we've had job cuts, we've had salary cuts, so I don't even save money. How do I begin investing? Some of us have realized that you needed to have an emergency fund during this time, because if there are job cuts, if it is, or for example, if there's an illness, if you're so susceptible to this virus, am I really kind of, have I fortified myself for all of that?
Yes.
And that absolutely. It's a very simple app that you download, which has a lot of learning in it. So there's, articles to read, there's an online learning course, and there is an investment platform, which you can simply just, it's a very simple decision making on that, as opposed to somebody asking you a lot of complicated questions. So you're anyways very intimidated. And then somebody's asking you these several questions and you feel, oh my God, then maybe this is obviously not for me. So that's what the app does. And then we have just launched the Being Lakshmi community. A Facebook group where women can come and ask questions, share their challenges. And it's essentially it's your safe, happy place to discuss money matters.
Excellent. Very nice. And I love the word safe, because that's a word that we have been exploring every time that we go. So just tell me, what is it you mean when you say safe? Just define the qualities of safe.
So safe essentially means that you are one, you can stand up, you don't feel intimidated. You say, this is what is really bothering me. This is what is worrying me, or this is a solution I'm looking for. And you also know that nobody at that point in time within that community will judge you or discuss it outside the community and say, oh, there was this woman or this girl who asked this, because we are at the end of the day in the same boat. I think it needs somebody, that one person, to stand up and say, look, I'm really worried because I don't think I'm saving enough money, or I have this aspiration to, take a sabbatical 2 years down the line and, make my own film, for example.
Yeah.
But I have that, I don't know how to go about it. Once one person speaks up, you realize there are so many others in the room who will say, yes, I hear you, I understand, and I'm in the same boat. And which is that you put this place where you're not being judged, you're not being intimidated, nobody's telling you that I'm superior in any way. And therefore you down.
Absolutely. Because it is really a fact. I mean, in school, I mean, so many youth come up to us, and even myself, if I look back at my growing up years and my learnings, I mean, we learned integers, we learned differential calculus, but we didn't learn accounting. We didn't learn investments. We didn't learn the necessary life skills on how to manage money and what to do. And so many youth, when they actually start earning and step into the working market, is what they call adulting, is when they suddenly realize, oh my God, I've got to do all of these taxes, and I have to understand how to save my money or manage my money. So is Lakshmi helping, reaching out to boys and girls, or only for women?
So Lakshmi is essentially only women. Only the that, one, I think the orientation, or our society orientation, has just been so strong towards saying that men should manage money and not women. So needs an extra couple of barriers to be broken for women to come, to really start that journey. And which is what, I realized that nobody, I mean, and I'm sorry to say, none of the investment advisors really wanted to take up that challenge because it is challenging. You have to have that be extremely passionate about it and say, yes, I want you to start that journey. So it reaches out only to women. One of the reasons, because it is, the barriers are many. Second, also, I think the way women manage their money is very, very different, because we're nurturers. We always have a purpose or a goal that we save our money for. I feel that, we have different life stages. For example, when we get married, our life tends to slow down. You have a child, the life tend to take a back seat because you want to take that, 3-6 months off maternity leave, and it somehow pushes your career back, whether you like it or not. That you need to kind of encounter, which men don't. And therefore, Lakshmi is meant to cater only to women and to men to an extent where they are supporting and they are telling their spouses, their daughters actually, that the life skill that you must have. And you're very right in saying none of our technical institutes really teach you about. So we've learned a compound interest, right?
Yes, we have.
To say
simple and compound interest. I remember.
Compound interest is the miracle that makes your money grow, but nobody takes it further to say that this is how you manage your money. Everybody knows how to make the money, and therefore I think this is a life skill. In fact, with Father's Day coming up, one of the things that we're speaking to fathers is to say that this is the one gift that you should give your daughter.
Yes, it is. And wives,
of course, absolutely. But because it's my kind of, but yes, of course, always.
And partners, yes, definitely. So, but there's also this other complete study which is there, that economic empowerment, financial freedom, it's all very critical. And this is really considered as one of the ways out of a situation of domestic violence, right? But on the other hand, there are enough and more studies which are showing a direct correlation with the rise in domestic violence and economic empowerment of women. In your experience, have you come across any such stories?
Which is what I said. The gap is that you're economically empowered in the sense you're earning your own money.
Yes.
Because you're not managing it, you are actually in some way mentally and emotionally and financially dependent on, especially if it's a marriage or a relationship, you are dependent because of doing it for you or managing it.
Yes.
And the gap actually which needs to be bridged. In fact, we are just also launching the Lakshmi Foundation, which is essentially meant to help the women in the in the underprivileged section of society, where you just inculcate the habit of saying, just put 500 rupees every month into this investment account, which is locked in. Nobody can take it away from you.
Absolutely.
So you're working, I've always felt all our staff, house help, you see women around you, they're earning their money, but it's always taken away from them.
That's true.
Even larger, there's so much of domestic abuse, but that we're aware of. But what's happening in the economically savvy households is actually what is very scary, because you have, and I read this, I think this article which said that the number of complaints that have come, issues that have come to the National Commission of Women for domestic violence and abuse,
yes,
in this time during the COVID time has been fourfold.
That's right.
And the horrifying bit was that about 60% of this came in through emails.
Yes.
And that means that these are educated women, they are economically empowered, yet a place where they are unable to, really stand up.
No, but that's also very true, no, Priti, because domestic violence is understood as being like a physical or an emotional abuse, or even sexual abuse is not recognized within the institution of marriage as a domestic violence act. But economic abuse is definitely not recognized, And many of the women that you're talking about, that okay, well-to-do or coming from a certain economic strata, and even they're going through domestic violence. But that's so true, because domestic violence is about taking away your resources or your opportunities to be able to do what you want to do. And economic abuse is the most common one because people are given access either to credit cards and then every move is monitored, or limited funds and then everything is monitored, or they don't have, even if they're earning themselves, the money is taken away. So the ability of the women to manage their own money doesn't exist because the money is not never there in their hands to manage.
Correct.
That also is a reality which we don't really recognize. And and it's surprising that we get taken by so much surprise when we see this. But because in all our experience of working, and I used to work with college students way back in the early 90s, from then to now, I don't think this shift has happened. And that's why when I saw Lakshmi and initiatives like Lakshmi, it just gives me so much strength. You know, it's like about your boot camps are really going to create this generation of young adults, young girls, and even older women like me, probably, who are going to actually learn how to get comfortable about managing their money. So, more power to you for something like that.
No, I agree. I remember I had this conversation when we were doing our surveys, and so many women, and interestingly, they would say, you know, with little things, and they give you the hints. Like somebody would say that I've been working for the last 12 years, I'm making good money, and I really want to take my parents for a holiday, but you know, I'm not able to say it because as a daughter, it's not, you know, I don't know what my husband would think, what his family would think. And you know, it just made you think that you just don't, you're not encouraged to have a right over your own, even the money that you are yourself earning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's why initiatives like what you're doing become exceptionally important, you know, because I think it really begins with information. It really begins with literacy. It really begins with small steps of, you know, just learning how to do it. And one of the things that we also talk about, I mean, for your foundation, you can probably think about that, is equipping the women with skills for conflict resolution.
Absolutely.
Because if you have money and then there's going to be a conflict around your money in your house, how do you enable them to draw a boundary and be able to negotiate that space and de-escalate any violence if it happens? So that is a very, very important aspect that all of us need to be focused on.
For the foundation, I think it is true across the board. And I think
exactly.
we together on that bit and say, how do we bring that? Because it's so important.
Yes. Also, I mean, I would just like to invite you into a larger context per se, and just hear your views on what you think about it as such, because um, gender inequality is so much also about, it's an economic issue as well, right? Because women's work is totally devalued. I mean, they work more, they earn less, and they save even less, right?
And we live. So we need more money, but we're not aware of that.
Right. So why is economic independence of women so overlooked? What would be your thoughts on that?
So I again go back to the same orientation of saying that we, you know, the way we've been kind of, our conversations were always around as a woman. It's rude to talk about money. It's rude to ask for more money. To stand up and say it's not nice, you know, it's like saying, okay, sit with your legs, you know, folded, etc. It's a thing we have. So women,
it's not ladylike to talk about money.
It's not proper. And so therefore even women in organizations also very, very rarely will stand up and say, look, I deserve this much because you're giving the same amount to a male colleague
Yes.
role. But we kind of excuse ourselves. We actually, because that orientation is so deep rooted, we don't come onto the table and say, I'm doing as much work. So the way we excuse ourselves, and I'm not preaching because I've been there where you've said, oh, but you know, tomorrow if something happens at home, then I may have to take a back seat. But it's not about that. It's the value you're bringing to your workplace, to your role, that really matters. And I think we have to also build that skill of saying, negotiate what is the right, you know, package for you, what is it that you should be earning, stand up for that, and also, you know, benchmark. We don't do that. I think we are so focused in our daily lives that very few of us really look around and say, okay, what is for example, in this role, what is it that the rest of the world is earning or paying? We don't network enough because, there's so much of stress on just being the perfect, whether it's the wife, mother, daughter-in-law, etc., that we feel, no, we need to be, at a certain place. When you go to conferences, which are financial conferences or business conferences, why is it that you just see a very, very small percentage of women there? Because
Yes.
we don't extend ourselves. We don't say that this is where we need to. These are the things that we should be doing. And I think that's what needs to really, that's the conversation that needs to, and I think a lot of conversation is happening increasingly around in that area. And it's
Excellent.
encouraging, And also I think a lot depends on women, women leaders around, women who run organizations, to really at least bring that, mentor women that work in their teams to say that this is what you should be doing.
Excellent.
We've also built that ecosystem of saying that if you're a woman and if you have children, is it okay to that flexibility of working from home? Because at the end of the day, you're saying, this is what from this role is what is required. I think we have to stop kind of saying, no, but you need to be here from 9 to 6 to do this. Understand. And we've seen, I've heard so many stories. I have a team in Lakshmi, which is all women. I have, of course, a couple of men as well, but it's largely women. And we've been working from home for the last 3 months, and extremely productive. I don't think we've, and it's nice to see. So I have one team member who has a young son, and when we're doing a meetings, and he comes in and he asks his mom a question, and it's hearing, because as a mom, that it's all right. She's at home. He's going to ask her a question.
Yes.
But it's not that shut herself in a room and say, oh, this is time.
Yes, it's actually really flattening so many things. It's leveling it out, because we have been kind of working in a work structure which has been created by men, and we have stepped into it, and we have just kind of fitted into the norms that have been created to cater to them and their realities. And now with this COVID, even us, all of us are working from home, and it's really it's this whole merging of, although you must also take into consideration that so much of the domesticated work that is there is increasing for the women, with the men and women being at home. So somewhere there's a lot of conversations that need to happen over here, and a lot of juggling that needs to happen, but it's the right start. And I completely hear you. You say something really important over here, which was one of the things that we need to acquire is language, the comfort with language. And we when we're talking about preventing child sexual abuse, that's what we're talking about also. Like, how do you acquire the language, the comfort with the language, to be able to speak about it? And it, I think, really extends over here as well, because if I can have comfort with the language, then I will be able to ask for my rights, ask about the money that is, ask about the value of my labor, speak up and not feel hesitant or feel as if I have to be like what you said, proper. Have to be proper about.
It's young, it begins at home. You have to, start these conversations, whether it is about, like you said, if it is sexual abuse, you have to teach your children. You have to be very open about them, have that communication. Similarly about money. I mean, I remember there was a time when family said, if the father and mother were talking money and the children came in, they'd say, shh, let's talk about it later. The kids are. But I think money needs to become a dining table conversation of saying, where your kids are there, whether it's a girl or a boy, you're speaking and you're saying, okay, these are the challenges and this is how we should manage it, because that's where you're picking up and you're saying it's a life skill. It's not something that should be brushed under the carpet that, oh my God, we shouldn't talk.
Absolutely. And it really becomes very important, because when we talk about breaking through the glass ceiling, I mean, somewhere all of these conversations become equally important to be able for the women to move on and up in the ladder as well. You broke through the glass ceiling, or you maybe started above the glass ceiling. How would you turn that?
So certain places, yes, I don't think I started above the glass ceiling, because invariably you can, it's like saying, okay, you have a platform, but you have to prove yourself at every level. Even in our company, we have a family board. You have to justify everything you're doing. But more importantly, within the team that that you're working with. It's very essential because you have to, the way the world is becoming so professional, our organization is very professionally run. So until I really am able to kind of prove my mettle and say that this is what I'm capable of doing, I will never be a team leader. And in order to be that, I have to, there are glass ceilings that you have to break at every level. There is enormous amount of mansplaining, when you go to these kind of your industry specific, kind of conferences, etc. You hear a lot of it, and I think the I think the beauty is that we possibly as women don't right at that point in time put our foot down, but I think we show it in terms of our actions and how we've, what we can actually achieve. So achievement speaks louder, and that's what we've been taught. But I think going forward, a lot of that is, for example, a man will not feel, he will not feel intimidated or stupid about asking a question. We just don't.
We just don't.
So I just feel that I think we have to let go of all of that judgment, and I've had to break glass ceilings at a lot of places, and I think struggle. It's every day. It's whether it's within the family, whether it's within your organization, whether it's in the outside world when you're part of so many associations, and invariably everything around just has a very very small percentage of women. So you have to deal with glass ceilings at various stages, at various levels.
Brilliant, Preeti, brilliant. I was hoping for this answer, but I'm going to now take you to the next answer, which I really need. And that's something which is going to inspire all the people around who probably are struggling in their own ways with. So what is the strength, or what is it that enabled you to move through this difficult spaces?
I think just that, I think there's always been, like I said, I think that inner fire and hunger to say that, yes, so I think I got married really early. I just always felt there was this sort of, I could say it was a bit of a hanger, because it was, hunger to do something. And there was also this anger to say that, oh, I got married too early and I didn't get these opportunities. My siblings were all the chartered accountants and MBAs. And here I was with already a baby and, married and the good, beautiful daughter-in-law wife. And I think just that hunger to say, no, I can do it. I can, also build a business. I can run teams. I can make films, for example. I think a lot of that, which has really driven you. So that inner desire, I think, has to be always.
And never take no for an answer. Like just kind of say you have a voice, and you have a right to express that voice.
Absolutely. I think, always express. And I've always found that expressing it with a lot of very respectfully is fine. You will always meet people who will, whether it is people around you, friends, family, as well as, outside like your team members, your workplace, who will always, have something which is completely meant to kind of bring you down. But I think always been, it works to say that I respect your opinion, but this is my opinion, and and this is what I will, this is what I want to stay true to.
Absolutely. And having the economic freedom, the financial freedom, to say the economic means and the financial freedom to go along with it, kind of boosts that place up, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that when I started this journey, to when I, till I had not done that entire piece of really running a business successfully, there was always that hesitation. And I think my own journey of really when I wanted to make films, and I think this is very kind of, what very, very to the conversation that we are having, very pertinent, that when I wanted to make films, I remember that my family actually fell off the chair, because we come from financial services, and there was like, who makes films? And for me, it was important because it was eating me up to say that what is the legacy, what is it that I'm going to leave behind, and I do want to say these stories which are thought provoking, which make you, which have a great shelf life, which my kids will like to watch, as opposed, because they were watching a lot of stuff on the OTT platforms and really not watching a lot of the films that were at that point in time releasing. And when I said that, I remember I had to justify. So I'd been working again. So it's the same situation. You've been working for 12, 13 years to say that, yes, it is something I want to set up, and nobody, I think, again, privileged. I don't think anybody really said, no, you can't do it. But I think at that point in time also, if I had built up that fund right from the time when I thought about it, to say, yes, I have my money and this is what I'm going to do, is a different conversation.
Yeah.
And that was when I really started thinking about Lakshmi. And, I said that this is something that you must build, because you have your dreams, aspirations, and you kind of build. And I think money is, I always say, I think it's very nice to say I'm a feminist, etc. But till you don't have the money power, you really, shout.
Absolutely.
Which is why the financial feminist.
Yes. and people miss this one out very often. Very often this gets missed out, Um, you said you got your creative bug from your mother.
Yeah, I did.
Tell us something about it.
Well, she's so she was an artist. We lost her 10 years back to lung fibrosis. But she was, she was 19 when I was born. So we were more friends than, but we had the mother-daughter moments all the time. But so she was the artist in the family. She was very creative. Would constantly tell me that, you should take this up. You paint well. You should take up the arts, etc. But you know how it is with your mothers, you always like, okay, I'll do it at some point. It's okay. It's not, because I think it was the dad finance DNA talking louder. So yeah, so it's only after she passed away I kind of really reflected to say, I do want to do something which is within the arts, whatever it is. So she was, like I said, she was, I think all of us, in fact, all three of us, all siblings, we owe it to her, our, all our interest in music. For example, she made sure that we are trained, classically trained, made sure that we're, exposed to art. She was a painter herself. So, yeah, there are times that we really kind of, and my sister really, would go and hide when the Guruji came home for lessons. But I think, we couldn't be more thankful. Really.
Yeah. Seems to be like a very common story. I mean, I used to run away when my music teacher would come home. But what was her name, if you don't mind?
So her name was Pushpalata. She was Suman later, because my aunt was also called Pushpa. So
okay, nice. Right. I I was just thinking, what was her name? Because even though you've spoken less of her, I could just feel that connect. And then especially then you went on to say that you look for stories which are thought-provoking, stories which connect you to people. So just a little more about what kind of stories do you look for? Because both Waiting and Karma are same in a way, because it's really about people relating, unrelated people relating and connecting with each other at a very different platform, and yet their formats or the kind of structures in which the stories are unfolding are very different. One is so static, like stuck in one time zone, and one is just traveling across the country. So what kind of stories do you look for? What do you look for in a story?
So, and just one more thing, Smita, before that, especially because we spoke about my mother, and it's I just find that as women and as mothers, I think we have such a profound impact on our children. We affect the way they, and the way that I don't think about her. And when it's an important decision, she's always there, at the back of the mind, that what would she think about it? So, that's the power that we have as women. I think when we come to stories, I think one of the things that I decided early on when Ishka was set up, which is my film company, was that we will say these really quirky stories, which which are dying to be told, but nobody really wants to tell them, because people, it is essentially a lot of commerce in the entire film industry. And you really want to break that. And the OTT platforms were just coming up, and we said, okay, let's try and make these films which are different. They're entertaining. They're essentially, if I read a script, I know this is the kind of film I'd love to watch. So that's the first filter. I'd love to watch this film being made. And the second was, I think it has to be very, if you see Waiting and Karwa, they're both very slice of life. They are situations. Of course, Karwa gets a little, because it's got that comedy, so it gets that little really completely, bizarre situation. But having said that, all the moments even in Karwa, very, very, very real. You would, whether it is, having this kind of a very strained relationship with one of your parents, really coming to terms with it, making peace with it. These are things that we see all around us. So I think films that are slice of life, they're also entertaining. Also, our life is, for example, Waiting, a lot of people told me that it was such a, circumstances it was set in was just so, it was dreary. But how did you bring that entertainment in it? And I have to give, of course, Anu Menon, who wrote the story, to say that she stuck true to the fact that even when you're in a hospital, there is a day or 2 days, 3 days when a dear one is ill, but after that you also start living a normal life, because you laugh, you eat, life goes on. And that's what life is about. And kind of staying true to, so when you're watching the film, that it should remind you of moments that you've been in, and you say, oh yeah, that happened to me, I understand that, I hear that.
Absolutely.
Like this, Indians, I think in India we don't like to see documentaries as much, so you have to that you have that entertainment. So
yes,
quirky. And also I think I like women-led stories. I really, really enjoy, so curating a lot of these scripts which are very women-led stories.
Excellent. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was quiet because I just went into the moments in Waiting, and they were actually really real. And I had those kind of situations in my life. And when I was looking at that film, I was laughing. I was also very close to tears.
Yeah.
So yes, it did speak to me. So looking at your films, looking at the work that you're doing with this whole financial freedom, economic empowerment, bringing it, opening up this crazy conversation around money, and then these quirky stories about things which are so true and so real, but nobody wants to talk about them, and bringing them out, and then the times today, and the impact on mental health of what is happening right now. How would you bring all of this together if I was to ask you to make a comment on mental health?
So I think it's a huge realization that communication, as humans, that's the gift that we have. We can perceive and we can communicate. And I think that's something that we need to do. And if you see all of these, whether it is using films or, any sort of media for that communication, to say that it's right to say, to reach out for help. As well as I think when it comes to Lakshmi, it's essentially about communicating and saying that, you need, let's talk about, so I say this all the time, that, women should say, I want to become rich. There's no shying away from it, because somewhere you know that you want to, but you've just been taught not to say it aloud. So you have to say, you have to express everything that you feel quite, so whether it's films, whether it's Lakshmi, whether it's everyday life, I think communication is that one tool that is very, very, we are privileged to have that as humans, and we should use that very effectively. There is no reason for us to keep things within ourselves. And, there will be challenging circumstances. What we are going through right now is unprecedented. I don't think in our, in worst nightmares, we thought that something like this could happen to the human race. But
yes,
and we're still as humans resilient, and we are saying, okay, we will fight this, etc. If we're facing a challenge, and which we could be, because I know a lot of my team members, they live alone in Mumbai. Just living 3 months in a room, in your house, just by yourself, can be very, very it could play havoc with your mental health. Reach out. There is one of the things that we actually have provided to all the people who are enlisted in Lakshmi is an app called DocsApp, where you reach out to doctors. It's to actually reach out, and I know the lady who was Jyoti, the doctor who's heading DocsApp, said that we are getting almost 10 times the calls for mental health, for psychiatric counseling than we get in normal time. So you have so many of these channels which are available. Pick up, communicate, talk about it. And I think for all of us, I think it's very important to communicate with our near dear loved ones. We don't know what's going on with whom, and till you don't have that communication, you will never know.
Excellent. Very nice. Very well said. It's connect and communicate. Yes.
Absolutely. And it is going forward, I think we have to understand it's just like the flu that we get, right? It is an illness and you have to treat it. It's nothing to do with, it is something that can be addressed. There's just so much stigma that used to be attached to it before, and I think there's no reason for us to keep that stigma. So much work so many people are doing, and there's so many channels to reach out to.
Great. So I'm feeling extremely empowered enough to ask you questions like, so tell me, Priti, in this time, what should I be doing? Should I withdraw my mutual funds? Should I stop my SIP? Should I stay invested in shares? I mean, how concerned should I be? What should be my asset allocation policy? Well, I think I'm feeling very empowered to ask you all these questions now.
But I thrill when I hear you say all of this.
I am going to join your Lakshmi community, and I'm really going to find out the answers for all of this.
Lovely, super, brilliant. No, really nice. And I think that right now is just stay invested and invest more if you can, because crisis is always the time to kind of markets are down. You should put your money in. So
brilliant. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. It's really been, I mean, I'm calling you Lakshmi. I mean, that's how synonymous you become with.
That happens a lot of times. My community manager, the lady who's, the girl who set up, half the time she's calling me Lakshmi. I'm like, I'm feeling very empowered. Thank you.
No, it has really been valuable for me personally, and I'm sure it's going to be very valuable for all the viewers who actually come in and watch this. And I'm going to encourage them to come to the Lakshmi website and actually check this out, because I think it's really important. Because if you're talking about economic empowerment, I really have. I mean, we've been working with domestic violence for years altogether. We've been working with child sexual abuse for years altogether. And one of the biggest obstacles that comes in over here is economic dependence. I mean, I stayed in a very difficult situation for about 12 years because I just did not feel that I was economically empowered enough to take any call. And if I look at myself, I said, if I can do that, I'm sure there are like so many around me who would be going through something like this. So something like what you're doing is extremely useful. And if your work and our work comes together, it's going to be like the world's going to be a much more empowered, economically empowered, and financially freed world. I would also like to just very quickly share with you that we are running and for the viewers, we are running a fundraising campaign on Keto to stop child sexual abuse and make homes a safe space. We also have a weekly webinar every Sunday at 3 p.m. So we invite you and all our viewers to find us on these pages and get to know us a little more.
Absolutely. I'm also reaching out to everybody on this platform that everyone here should support all the efforts that you are doing. So there's two types of investment. One is investing in your future, and the other is investing in the society around you. And I think both have to happen for the world to be a better place. So please do go to Keto. Please do make this world a much, much better place for all of us.
Thank you so much, Priti, and I hope to catch you again for an extended conversation. We have many incomplete conversations between us, and I look forward to catching you on that. Thank you so much for coming here. It was absolutely lovely to see you.